How you doing? Welcome back. This is Chris with Chris's Comments. Show about common sense on common ground, no matter what the subject. Today's subject is a doozy. It's got to do with that Israeli conflict that's going on between the Israeli and the Palestinians and Hamas and all them. For those of us that don't really keep up with that or hardly ever know or anything like that, Hamas is basically an offshoot of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, designed to liberate the Palestinian Liberation Organization from Israeli occupation. Now, you see me doing the quotes thing. Basically, the Palestinians originated out of the Israeli territories in the 12th century BC. It's almost centered east of Israel, back when it was called the 12 tribes of Israel, 5 centuries before the Palestinians originated. Okay, so about 500 years after the 12 tribes of Israel were formed, Palestine gets developed, and there's been conflict with them and Israel ever since. Okay, now that being said, Hamas in 1987 comes up. Again, it's an Egyptian Muslim-based brotherhood. It's an offshoot. It's not exactly originated out of that, but it's headquartered at the Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip, for those of you who don't really know or anything, is just this little strip of land southwest of Israel. And in fact, I think it's beachside territory as well. Now, here's the thing. There's some atrocities going on over there, and it's getting a lot of people angry and upset. Almost everybody is positive that it's got something to do with their president, Netanyahu. I'm not really sure if I'm enunciating that correctly. And that he's trying to win over his people back, and that he's trying to revive favoritism for his weak leadership and all this BS stuff. And there's also, you're going to hear a lot of complaints if you ever ask anybody about it that thinks they know about it, saying Israel's always starting the wars. Palestinians, they're poor people that don't really have anything and all this other stuff. And they're peaceful. But it's really sort of a mute conundrum. It's sort of a mute conundrum. And I say that because Israel is having to fight this country, Palestine, from that was formed 5 centuries after it was already formed as the 12 tribes. And it's always been at war with. It's always had a conflict with them. And then to top it all off, in 1987, the Palestinians joined Hamas, which has been its so now the Hamas is a Palestinian Sunni Islamic fundamentalist organization. It's vowed to murder anything and everything Jew, to be totally honest. And it's not even, that's not exactly that's not all that it entails. There's a lot of theoretical philosophy that comes out of Hamas. There's a lot of strong military that comes out of Hamas. There's a lot of, I guess, progressive stuff that comes out of Hamas. But the main thing to remember is that they're anti-Jew. And they show it quite a bit in their attacks and killings and murders, of old people all the way down to little kids. Okay, they're no saints either. Palestine has joined forces with this, okay? Or at least the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Okay? They're the ones that are, it's a pretty big organization in their country. So for everybody it says, now hold on, that's not all Palestinians. True. Just like it's not all Israelis that are out and attacking Palestinians. So, yeah, you got my number. Congratulations. Now, this leads to the conundrum, okay? It leads to the conundrum. Should we really be condemning Israel for their attacks and removals of their longtime threatening enemy, of their longtime threatening enemy? Should we really be doing that? Or should we just let Israel handle their business? Again, these are people that are anti-Jew. They're anti-Semites. They're anti-Israel. Okay? It's a whole country. And one little country inside that country, center, and then all the way out to the east of Israel, is anti-Israel and anti-Jew and anti-Hebrew. Okay, they've been fighting with each other for since the 12th century BC, and now has the muscle backed up by Hamas. I should stop saying hummus. Hummus is actually a very delicious dish. And they're all at war with it. The Hamas is one that's vowed to kill Jew. You don't see them striking anybody else down. You might see them go after U.S. support, Israel's U.S. support, which is us, the United States. But that's occasional by comparison to the attacks that they throw on the Jews. It's recorded history. So, what is the best way of looking at this? What is the best way of this? This is an organization that's taken shots at the U.S. as well. And I suppose a real good way of looking at this is to try to picture ourselves in this analytically. Okay? What if the United States started sending their military down here into the southeast and the southern states? Okay? What if they started sending them down here, arresting, uprooting, and removing, even as far as bombing everyone, KKK, or neo-Nazis, or any other association with white supremacy? What if, okay, let me put that back, let's do this again, okay? What if the United States started sending their military down here in the South and bombing, uprooting, even bombing and arresting and removal of anybody and everybody that was in association with white supremacy? KKK, Nazis, the Confederacy. The Confederation started no more than a century after the declaration of the U.S. Okay? And it was beaten after a war, and even still has been responsible for a variety of attacks in our country since. Okay? This is not just an organization. There's a bunch of little organizations that are connected to a certain people in the U.S. that, again, are responsible for a variety of attacks throughout the country, throughout this nation. And they've got muscle to do that with. They've got the high-powered rifles. They've got military. They've got tanks. There's some footage of other militia groups that are in favor of white supremacy that have actual helicopters that they can use as attack choppers. And it's true. It's all true. So what if the U.S. started doing stuff like that? Would we really be upset with that? I know I wouldn't. Any more than I would if it was focused on cartels. Not so much the immigrants. But if the United States actually started going through our neighborhoods, my neighborhood also, I'm in San Antonio, Texas. You don't get much more Mexican than that. Mexican. And all these Mexicans started who had ties with gangs, cliques, mafia, cartels, okay, and everything else that's centered around it, okay. If the military, U.S. military, literally started uprooting and taking out and even bombing sections, like here in the U.S., we've got more or less grouping in a certain neighborhood or grouping in an apartment complex for a small while before the gangs actually started to, before the gang units actually started to tear down the gangs. There was a literal apartment complex. It was like a 5-story or 3-story. I'm sorry. 3-story complex. It was encircled around a little, like a little open area, picnic area in the middle of it. And there was a gang, and I really don't remember who they were, but they wore the white caps backwards. It was always a white hat, and it was always backwards. For a while, they dominated that little area. And I swear to God, even though they themselves got broke down by their own excessive partying and excessive violence and excessive domestic violence, theft, reports of theft and all this stuff, even, not giving a damn whether they get caught on surveillance cameras in the surrounding shopping areas, even though they themselves got broke down by their own, menacing ways, so to say. I swear to God, if there was a authorized military attempt to seize the place, arrest them, and if they were, Latino, some I heard were Anglo, whatever country they originated from, because remember, not all white people are indigenous. There was a small handful of indigenous whites, but that's about it. They're Nordic based. They're Norse based, Odin worshippers. And the most northern area that we found the evidence of them was in, I think, West Virginia, in the Appalachians. Okay. But I swear to God, here in San Antonio and along the southern states, anybody cartel, gang or whatever, mafioso, was to be hit and thrown out. Me, I'd have nothing to worry about if they were actually against them, because I have nothing to worry about because I don't belong to any of them, So, but if they were to actually get rooted out, would you really complain? I wouldn't. So now use that same analogy with many of you out there who are watching in the southern states, where the Klan and people who still support Confederate values, if they were to actually get nabbed and sent back to the UK or Germany or wherever it is that they come from, I've seen some of them with Italian last names. What if they were to get deported back to Italy? Italy is one that actually accepts a lot of migrants. What if all of the white supremacists, anybody that calls themselves a white supremacist, and any organization, in association or in affiliation with, if they were to get bounced out, would we really complain? Will we demand that these atrocities stop? So now that we have this analytical situation, what do you think of it? What do you do? How are you supposed to actually interpret this, now that we're going back to the original subject concerning Israel versus Palestine, a country that was formed 5 centuries after the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel already formed in that land, and has done nothing but attacks on Israel. What do you do? Now, do we praise Netanyahu for what he's doing right now? I am to understand that they're going as far as doing exactly what the Hamas did. The Hamas did to Israelites, you know, bombing little kids and such, and arresting them and all that. Well, obviously that's not cool. So we obviously got a villain amongst this, amongst their own kind. You know, it's a leader, and he's doing some bad things. So I think maybe focusing on punishing him is a good way to go. But the rest of it, not so sure. And I'm really not even sure that the Palestinians would even be in trouble, given the fact that they've been backed up. They've been supporting the Hamas, and they were actually anti-Israeli back when they were PLO. And they've been at war with them as far as biblical times, to where a young boy used a sling to sling a rock, hitting a Palestinian giant, called David and Goliath, in a story called David and Goliath. You know, stories of nothing but attacks and fighting, and has been going on ever since Palestine has been formed. You know, so maybe, here's my take, maybe if we just let Israel do their thing in uprooting the Palestinians back into Egypt, where Hamas is formed, and any other Middle Eastern territory. But as soon as that's done, as soon as Israel gets their own country, arrest, try, sentence Benjamin Netanyahu. I think that would be fair. I think that would only be fair, because nobody really told him to butcher. If that's actually what's going on, I don't really know yet. I haven't done any research, and I haven't been looking at any file footage that's been broadcasted over the internet yet. But I will. I will look at all sides through this and see what's going on. So I'm on my last minute, and I want to say, just think about that from this little guy's perspective to you over there on the other side of the screen. And at the same time, keep being safe. I know a lot of mask mandates have been lifted and stuff, but let's still just try to be safe, okay? Me, I'm a rideshare driver. I've got no choice. I got maskers, anti-maskers, vaxxers, and anti-vaxxers jumping in here. So I'm constantly playing it safe. But I want you all to take care. Tomorrow's a new week. It's Sunday today, May 16th. Y'all take care. Let's have a start off with a good work week tomorrow. Okay? All right. This is Chris with Chris's Subjects, signing out.